Hello, welcome to the Record Sport Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Comm. Delighted as ever to be joined by Record Sport's Michael Gannon and Graeme Young. Guys, how you both doing?
I don't know about you boys, I'm a bag of nerves. As I'm recording this, it's hours before kickoff with Scotland tonight, and a state of kind of absolute excitement and panic. I don't know about you guys, but a mixture of both.
A bit of dread as well.
Oh,
Exactly.
man.
Well, we will. Obviously, Scotland is at the forefront of our mind right now, but this is the Celtic pod, guys. There's plenty of Celtic news for us to chew over, despite it being International Week. And Mick, can probably best to start with yourself. Wilfried Nancy, a lot of fans thought maybe it would be done by now, but as we sit here, we're still waiting.
It depends on when you're watching this or listening to it, the podcast, because it might well be done and dusted or in complete ruins by that point. I'm more inclined to think it's more going to be the former. As far as I'm aware, and what I've been told is that it's progressing. I know people are kind of impatient and they're kind of jumping on every line they get and kind of running with speculation kind of wild. But at the moment, it seems to be that it's progressing well. I know that they held talks, started Friday night. The talks, by all accounts, were very positive from both sides. Very, very close, if not just about there. As far as I'm aware, Celtic are also currently in negotiations with Columbus Crew over compensation, which can take a bit of time. I think it's not just going to be the head coach or manager as well. I think he's hoping to bring a whack of his staff as well. He's number 2, Kwame Ampadu. He's number 3, Johan Dammit. There's an analyst called Max Shellier, I think it is, and a fitness kind of guru called Jules, whose second name I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's involved in this as well. I'll tell you a wee second if I can get his name. So there's a few guys involved in this process as well. There's complications. Obviously, there's time zone complications when it comes to negotiating with Columbus. There's a lot of things happening. I know Celtic put out a statement on Monday night, and some people have jumped on it and they've read it certain ways. I'm reading that he said comments saying that this is them definitely saying that Martin O'Neill's in charge at the weekend against St Mirren. Well, I didn't see that in the statement. It might well be, but I think it just leaves it open. It was an update. It was an update saying no news yet, but there will be at some point. So it's a non-update update. Listen, we know that Martin O'Neill and John Malloy were taking the team this week in lieu of a new head coach coming in. So nothing's really changed in that respect. They're preparing for the game Saturday as they should do, as normal, and told otherwise. Well, not this kind of all tied in a nice, comfy big bow by then. Remains to be seen. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot going on, but as far as I'm concerned, it's progressing, and I still expect it to go through, with the massive caveat saying if you listen to this after it's crashed, then I told you it was going to crash. It wasn't done yet. I did say this could all fall apart at the last minute. I like an Eddie Howe's kind of situation and all that stuff. But at the moment, I think it's progressing.
Graeme, I mean, look, I get that none of us are MLS experts, but are you excited by the prospect of Nancy coming to Celtic?
I think so. I think the more time, one thing that's helped maybe Nancy is the time maybe to digest the move, and I think the cynicism with the board among the fan base is obviously palpable. It's been there for a long time, and with AGM women as well, it's tensions are on the rise. But to me, the more you read about and the more you're impressed, and for a couple of reasons. I think the title win these first seasons, a pretty strong evidence of what he's capable of. Follows that up with a Leagues Cup win, their domestic cup, and then speaking to Mick previously about this in the CONCACAF, like that's a pretty strong level, playing against Mexican sides, coming up pretty well. His tactics showed up as in those games. They'd be more similar to what you'd expect in a Europa League or not in Celtic, but a Conference League, maybe just that level below the Champions League. And I think the part as well, there's been a lot about his style of play. But if you take screen grabs of his teams and attacking, it could be Postecoglou or a fellow attacking coach. Guys are up the pitch, wing backs are high, 3 or 4 players are breaking the lines. So this whole 3-4-3, and I think Ruben Amorim at Man United's been a guy who's kind of up until recently been used as a stick to beat someone with. His formation anyway, Wilfried Nancy, it's pretty flexible. And I think the other part that I think is a big selling point is this: he seems tactically aware, but he's also a player's coach, where he's a guy who really wants to get on side. I saw Darlington Nagby, a player who was linked with Celtic a few years ago under Brendan Rodgers' first season. And he just raved about him. Just you can tell that bond. That's the or like key man in the team, and that would be Cal McGregor. I think he's someone who can get on side with people quickly, and I think the challenge seems right for him, doesn't it? It's hard with Celtic right now. You can't. Everything is based on fans enamored with the board, and rightfully so for a lot of reasons. But this is the type of manager a progressive team would hire. Let's be honest. This is what you're looking for, isn't it? This is the way you do it. So, if the club is evolving behind the scenes, I think Wilfried Nancy looks like the perfect candidate for what Celtic are looking to do.
Well, I think as well, there has to be a bit of reality check, kind of where Celtic and Rangers, by the way, are in the kind of food chain. I mean, they've got a few options when it comes to managers. In terms of where the club is pitched, in terms of where they play and what they pay, you're looking at that kind of, I don't know, maybe bottom end of the championship level in England now. That kind of merry-go-round. And we've seen those guys coming to Scotland and not doing particularly great. Do they then go for an up-and-coming manager who's going places and try and get on the way up, like a kind of Ange Postecoglou? I mean, you look at Brendan Rodgers is a massive outlier. I mean, getting them first time round was an incredible coup. But you don't get Brendan Rodgers fresh on the back of Liverpool unless there was like an emotional pull, the family pull and all that stuff. And you just don't get that. And likewise, he went back again. Another coup was because he had that kind of unfinished business. You don't get that level of manager for Celtic. Martin O'Neill back in the day was different because Celtic at that time probably had a top 6 wage bill in Britain that time. Whereas, I mean, signing players like Chris Sutton broke the transfer record twice. These days, a bit like signing a £100 million striker. So it was a different environment. So I think Celtic's environment is different. So do you go and get the usual faces in that level? Or do you go and get an up-and-coming guy? And Celtic have been quite shrewd when it comes to that kind of thing. Even guys are looked at. I mean, I remember they tried to get Enzo Maresca when he was still up-and-coming. Was it Tedesco? Was it another one? These guys, these names are floating about, up-and-coming managers who were kind of starting out. The name Wilfried Nancy might not be a big name. I think the name thing as well, not even so much coming from America. I think if it was Thierry Henry, who was his manager with him, Nancy at Montreal, if he stayed in the US, won the MLS Cup, won the MLS League Cup, was Coach of the Year, and then Celtic would have appointed him, nobody would bat an eyelid. It's Thierry Henry, even though his CV had the same things on it. Mm-hmm. So it's very much the name as much as the league. And I think it's a wee bit of snobbery involved. What is clear, it's a major jump in terms of pressure, scrutiny, just the general size of the club and the scale of it. I mean, Columbus Crew, I think, are a really well-run outfit. They've got all the facilities, all the backup and analytics, the recruitment, you name it. So it's not like this is not like some tin pot wee club in the middle of nowhere. But there isn't the same scrutiny or pressure. There isn't. I mean, they get good wee crowds and all that stuff, and they're quite vocal, but they're not got the same ferocious passion that they have in Europe. That's just a fact. In America, I mean, it's just not there. Media scrutiny as well. I mean, they won't be the dozens of broadcast and written journalists hanging around every word. I mean, you see it this week in America. I mean, have a look at the American news in Columbus and in America in general. This is barely that I mention. Yeah. Even the Columbus, Ohio news are not all over this because they're too busy with their football teams, their basketball teams. College football out there is huge. It's barely rating a kind of a nib in the papers out there because that's unfortunately that's where soccer is in terms of national conscience out there. So go from that to Glasgow, which is slightly different, as we know. That's going to be a big leap for the guy. But in terms of his coaching and stuff like that, I don't think his credentials are to be sniffed at. The only question marks is how do you handle the Goldfish Bowl?
See, when you were saying, Mick, there about how the landscape's changed pretty much since the turn of the century, someone had put something on Twitter the other day, and I just thought it was fascinating. It was Martin O'Neill, 1st of June 2000, walks into Celtic, and it was later on that day in Sky Sports, and it was where Harry Redknapp was West Ham manager at the time, and they were asking him, you Celtic are apparently in for like Chris Sutton, maybe even John Hartson, blah, blah, blah. And Harry Redknapp, as West Ham manager, is going, just can't he compete with Celtic? Can he compete with Celtic? He just can't do it. And then also off the back of that, later on, someone has edited this together. Roy Keane in 2000's writing his first book, and he's saying, I was offered a deal to make me the highest paid player in Britain at the time, and it was in 60 grand a week. Mm-hmm. If you think back, I mean, Henrik Larsson, Sutton, and that, they'd been on, 35, 40? I mean, like you say, it's just. Can you imagine Celtic now trying to go and get Chelsea's number 9 record signing? It's just a different galaxy. I know we know that.
Big Sutty broke the record twice. Look at it, Blackburn at Chelsea. And he's probably one of the top 10 earners in Britain at the time.
I think that skewed a certain level of Celtic fan or people watching on Scottish football as well, because even Life in the Slow Lane, the famous quote for Brian Quinn, and after an Nealon reducing the wage bill, Celtic at the start of the Strachan era were signing Jan Vennegoor Hesselink for PSV, Thomas Gravesen for Real Madrid. So for a 5, 6, 7, there was marquee signings aplenty. Juninho, Nakamura, that was demo. That was part of the way the club operated. So I think that still drips down to a certain level. A fan or onlooker who watches and goes, there has been a time where that kind of mark that they have pushed the boat out. I think for certain people would like to see it obviously happen again, but it's obviously difficult. The world's changed, hasn't it?
Well, you said it there, Mick, that it's basically like Celtic are now trying to do what they've been doing with players for the last 15 years. They're trying to find the next big manager before he's a big manager. Yeah.
Listen, you might get the stars aligning, and you get a real big hitter who thinks, I really fancy that job. It might be minted already, so it's maybe financially it's not a big deal. But you're looking at, I mean, bang average managers in the English Premier League now are earning 6 million, 7 million, 8 million pound a year.
Yeah,
I mean that's the going rate. Celtic are not going to pay that for a manager, so that narrows the market to either guys who are at the bottom of the hill trying to find a way back up, or guys who are on the way up the hill, or guys who just fancy a shot at it, maybe at a certain stage of their life. So it does narrow the market a wee bit. I still think it's an attractive job. Don't get me wrong, and it's still a well-paid job. I just think it does have to inject a wee bit of realism into what market you're pitching in, and likewise with players. I mean, Celtic now, back then under Martin O'Neill, would have been in the top 10 easy wage bills in Britain, maybe top 8, getting towards top 6, which is why they beat Liverpool and Blackburn and all that stuff. Whereas now they're not in the top 10 payers in the Championship.
Probably.
No, they're not. They're not. The wage bill is in the Championship now. A £60 million a year wage bill is probably.
You're right, man.
Squeezing at the top 10 in the Championship.
Aye.
So that's the reality.
Just to finish on the manager chat, Kwame Ampadu, you mentioned there, Mick. He was. I think I'm right in saying he worked with Paul Tisdale previously at one point in his career. A lot of people are putting 2 and 2 together and thinking it's maybe Tisdale's move. Is that your understanding, or is this more from higher up?
Well, it might have been that's where the original name popped up. It might be we don't know. I mean, the reality is I don't know. All I know is that once it gets to the kind of making a move stage, it's Dermot Desmond who drives that bus, as he usually does. It might have been that this has been flagged up a bit like when Mark Lawwell flagged up Anish Postecoglou, part of the City group, saying, "Listen, there's a guy here who could do the business," and it was Dermot Desmond who then checked him out, spoke to him, and thought, you know what, I like to cut this guy's jib. It sounds very similar with this Nancy deal, because obviously Dermot Desmond spoke to him a few weeks ago, like to cut his jib, and it's moved since then. So yeah, I don't think he's been hands-on in terms of the negotiations and stuff like that, but he definitely maybe had a part to play in terms of the nudging it along. Funny enough, Kwame Ampadu, I crossed paths with him 20 odd years ago when I was a young cub reporter down in South Wales. He signed for Newport County as a veteran when I was kicking about that beat. So I can remember just about cross paths with him, and he was seen as the big star signing, because that time he'd played about 190 games for Swansea and been capped by Ireland and all that stuff. And County were kind of lingering with the bottom, I think it was maybe the conference or something like that at that point in time. And I was a young cub reporter just starting out. So I remember crossing paths with Kwame. He's a good player, by the way. What's a good player? His boys, Ethan Ampadu plays in Wales. Yeah, he was born obviously when he was down in Wales. He's a cracking player as well, but Kwame was a really classy midfield player back in the day. He's a good coaching career as well. I mean, he's come through the Arsenal rank. He was Exeter with Tisdale as a youth coach. Went to Arsenal as part of the Arsenal youth setup, and obviously he's now I think he was at Monaco with Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry as well, and then also in America. I think Henry took him to Montreal. I think. He was in Montreal,
Columbus Crew, Monaco. You're right.
He stayed with Wilfried Nancy, and he's right the way through to Columbus. He's a coach of note, that's for sure. Like I say, he was a cracking player back in the day as well. Stood out like a sore thumb in the conference, that's for sure.
So, as we sit here now, I get that this is all going to change by the time you're probably listening at home, but all things being equal, do we expect Wilfried Nancy to be the next Celtic manager?
Yes. Mick, help me out.
I just thought I'd let you hang there. But, I think so. There's still a lot of questions starting. I mean, when's it going to get done? When would they be taking charge? I mean, I know this statement from Celtic about Martin O'Neill didn't say he's definitely taking charge of the game at St Mirren. They might be, if need be. Would they come in and then be announced, and then sit in the stand and watch that game? Possibly. But then it's like it's Feyenoord next week, Hibs the following weekend, and Dundee the midweek. I find it hard to find out where and when the new manager can slot into this. Then through the end of the wait and give him to let him start at Parkhead against Dundee. But then why would you have a manager and not let him get on it? Then, but he's still got to move across the Atlantic. So there's a lot going on here. Do you know what I mean? So it might not be that straightforward to just come in and take training on Thursday, Friday, and get to Paisley, then jump a plane to Holland. It's a lot to sort out, I think, and it might take a bit of time. So I think at this stage, I think it's still going to be the case.
We've got to take into account as well, Graeme, the fact that this guy's just finished this season. I mean, what was it, last week? Last week or the week before, Columbus Crew got knocked out of the playoffs. He just finished this season. And as Mick says, Celtic away at St Mirren, then away at Feyenoord, then away at Hibs as the next 3 games. And then Dundee midweek, the 3rd of December. And then Hearts at home on the 7th. And then Roma on the 11th. I mean, there is absolutely no let-up at all. That's why I wouldn't be particularly adverse to just saying to Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, look, get us to the cup final. But who knows?
But then it never breaks as well. And I see a working theory as well that the Dundee game that Mick made the point. But imagine the results don't go to plan against St Mirren, Feyenoord, and Hibs, and then suddenly it's a must-win, and any game can become at that point. So, but they might be the smartest operator in the world. They might be sitting on a beach right now, sitting on a margarita. And can we just check one more thing about the contract? They might be a couple of days back because it's been a long season for him as well, going from like March right the way through. But there doesn't seem an obvious point to do it. I think once it's done, they just need to get going. I don't think wait now.
You can't opportunity knocks. You can't just like wait to the time is right to go through. I mean, it's I mean, what happens if they say, right, okay, you can get the job after the cup final, and Martin O'Neill strings together a sensational run of results. Yeah. And all of a sudden the punters will be saying, what's the point of bringing a guy in? We're flying here. Yeah. Likewise, I mean, if it goes wrong and a new manager sitting in the sidelines, why is the new guy not in charge, taking hold of this team and starting planning for January and getting through this spell? So this is uncharted territory really for Celtic. I mean, I don't really remember Celtic having to do this during mid-season in my kind of journalistic lifetime. That's for sure.
I think like someone was saying, I think Lou Macari was the last time. I mean, I can remember obviously Tony Mowbray was sacked mid-season, but towards the end, and they brought.
Yeah, but it wasn't a change of manager that came into that team.
Exactly, aye.
Because it was caretakers, wasn't it? So Mowbray would have been a caretaker, sacked during the season, caretaker. Obviously, been first time round, Neil Lennon, caretakers to the end of the season. So I can't remember. I mean, so Lou Macari, did he come in?
I think so, mid-92 or something like that, eh?
Yeah, so certainly not. I was only about 2 then. So,
there you
I don't know about you, Youngie. I was only about 2 or 3 at that point. I was still at nursery, 1994.
The other reason why
the pub on it too.
The upcoming fixtures are important is because Celtic struggling right back wise as they have been for a while now. Colby Donovan stretchered off for Scotland under 21s. Look, Tony Ralston. I know this is I feel like Tony Ralston's full name is Tony Ralston has never let the club down. That's what I was about to say there, and he hasn't. But I would like Colby Donovan if they were both fit and firing. I'd have him ahead of Tony Ralston personally. I know Alistair Johnson would be ahead of them both, but he's not going to be fit for a while. But it's another blow for Celtic.
Yeah, it's racking up, isn't it? But the thing with Simpson Pussy was pretty good there the other week as well. Like, so there's options they're dwindling options now as well. But Alistair Johnson's a big one. Talk about this great Celtic team of recent memory, and the fulcrum of it was Kuhn and Johnson overlap. But like you say with Donovan, Dan, he's been very impressive at the start of this season. But again, it's a lot to ask a young player, isn't it, to come in and do it all the time. But then I think that's where Celtic are, and I think the biggest thing here with Wilfried Nancy is the formation change. I think that role's going to change. That is one of the main parts of it. The wing back role becomes a full-time wing back role. I think it probably the other one, Kieran Tierney, the other side as well. I think him and Sirachi, again, Sirachi's injured as well, but if Sirachi was fit, he could be the left-sided wing back. Tierney could play that position. He played for Scotland. I think it's a wee bit cloudier on the right-hand side. So there's loads. I think that's the other thing as well. I think when he's looking at a player like Donovan, I think he probably fills the brief as good as anyone. I think Ralston's a more traditional right back. So, but it's another gut punch for Celtic in a season full of them. Cal McGregor doubted the fact that they're cussed or not, but it does feel at points that this has been a season where not much has gone right on and off the pitch, and I think this latest injury is probably indicative of that.
It's a sore one for Celtic, Mickey.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as bad as it was first feared. But it's an area that Celtic are struggling in. I mean, Tony Ralston's had injury problems this season as well. Again, when you say Tony never let the side down, he had a bit of a dodgy night in Michelin, right enough, but along with a few other ones, in fairness to him. But yeah, I get the point. Yeah, he's a bit of a warrior, is Ralston. Yeah, it's an area of the pitch that's an issue for Celtic just now with injuries. I mean, that right side has been an issue all season for Celtic, and it's going to be until January. They're going to have to keep just kind of patch it up and get on with it. Obviously, Alistair Johnston interestingly worked with Wilfried Nancy at Montreal. He speaks so highly of him. I mean, you're talking about Tisdale's influence. I mean, if they asked Alistair Johnston, I'm pretty sure he would give him a ringing endorsement as well. So getting him back fit is going to be really important. But it's going to be a while. He's going to be a while out. Could be months. So they're going to have to kind of mend and make do to January and then shore it up, I think. Like you say, Simpson Pusey played there a week. They're all right. I think Cole Donovan, I think he's showed a lot of potential. Had a tough game, Hearts game, wasn't it? That he kind of struggled a bit. Hasn't been seen since. Well, that whole right side of the game was an issue at Tynecastle. But again, there was a few weeks earlier. We saw him. What was it? Belgrade. He was tremendous in Belgrade. A really good game. So he's bagging a potential. Hopefully, he's not going to be out longer term. But yeah, I think he's getting him back fit would be handy in the short term anyway. So the game, as you keep touching on it, the games are kind of coming thick and fast. And Celtic are in a pretty vulnerable state right now in terms of the squad, in terms of the gaps that were left from the summer and this injury list, which is pretty dodgy right now.
I think they need to buy a starting right back in January. If it's a starting striker and a starting right back, because Alistair Johnston, like we've talked about before, any healthy club in the world would be planning ahead. He's the type of player that's a sellable asset. He's also in a World Cup year. I don't mean, of course, he was Celtic, but he was brought back so hastily for that injury. He owes it to himself to give himself every chance of being right for a World Cup, which is in his home country. And I think everyone knows Alistair Johnston, how dedicated he is to the cause, that I think he would love to come back, but I think he also needs to make sure he's right. He can't have what happened against Sturm Graz. I think it's a position that if there is that right back they like, who they view as a long-term starter, that's where a lot of the money, January transfer money, should go, with a striker potentially as well.
Yeah, I think they can get away with a loan. A right back, even a loan. I mean, they kind of the Jeffrey
top level player, I think. Yeah.
Would be handy, I think, for Celtic, because they do need help. But striker's the main one, isn't it? I mean, striker's the big situation. I mean, we don't know yet about any actual when he's going to be back, but they're still very light up there. I mean, I know Dyson Maida's now back, but again, even January, that's still uncertain. He's going to still be here in Glasgow after January. So yeah, striker and right back are the first two. Striker, right back, and right wing are the three big. They need to make three decent signings early on in January.
We had a story last week on Record Sport Online from our colleague Scott Burns talking about Dyson Maeda and his future, which is there if you want to look it up. But speaking to Burnsy kind of on the Record Sport hotline, he sort of said he thinks it'll be very early in January if Dyson Maeda can get his way that he will be gone. So, I mean, you've got to think Celtic have got to have something lined up. They've got to be looking at this and going, look. But then again, Mick, look, I don't know. I've seen this last year, so who knows?
Well, the problem with Dyson Maeda in Celtic is he's not just one player; he's three players. You're losing your arguably, potentially your first choice left winger, your backup striker, and your first choice right winger. So first choice right winger, backup left, and second choice striker. So you're losing three guys in one. So if you lose Dyson Maeda, you theoretically have to buy three players to replace him, at least two. Potentially three, because he can fill in across that whole front line, unless you can find a guy who can do all that, which is good luck finding that one for a decent price.
But am I being totally naive, Graeme, by thinking, look, they've got, surely, man, they've got to. We're still talking about Kyogo from almost a year ago. Kyogo and Enida and Maeda. Surely Celtic have got to be sitting there going, right, listen, this window opens. Here's 2 or 3 we can get.
100%. And I think this is the one argument the board would have in their favour is if they move, if they go at the clappers at the start of the window, they could go, maybe at what? See, we told you it was Brendan Rodgers. That's the only thing. No, I'm serious.
No, I know.
But I mean, like, was Brendan Rodgers' biggest weakness resistance to options there? And it was like maybe dragging it. And I think that goes both ways. But I think that would be the only argument as well, that when people raise the first 2 Ange Postecoglou windows, it's praise to Ange Postecoglou, but maybe it's praise to a more amenable style of working, who knows? But that the only evidence there will be if it's a quick start to the window. But when Mick said right winger as well, it was obvious as well. It's close it is, and then you add in the fact that Maeda, what he can do. Balikwisha, that's a big problem as well. Let's be honest. Like, it's been such an ill fit, and he is the one player that. Not to turn into a football doctor myself, but I watched a pretty decent amount of him because we did profile pieces on him, and he is the exact player you watch in the videos.
For months,
exactly who he is who
for
he
months,
is.
Graeme was saying, honestly, everyone listening, Graeme was saying for months, Balikwisha, I've been watching Balikwisha, so I can back it up.
But and it's just, he is, like, when he gets through and goal, he gets sometimes good cross and a good shot, but he just seems like a player incapable of handling the robustness of Scottish football or the metal that's needed to really get stuck in when you look at the players. And even I know Taneki's getting it tighter now, just a bit of maybe lack end product, but he's very accountable, isn't he? He's there to be counted every game, wants the ball, and who knows, I think his final product will get better. But you would take that every day over a guy who looks like, I mean, a proper, the price paid, how much was left in his contract. I think they can't have any more Balakwishas. There can be no players that just don't fit the brief. That's the biggest thing as well. They have to get it right.
Absolutely. And before we finish, guys, I need to give a quick nod to the Celtic players on duty with Ireland because, I mean, massive result for them. I don't know if you caught any of it, Mick, but away to Hungary, needed to win 2-1 down with 10 minutes to go. Troy Parrott hat-trick and they secure a playoff place. And right at the heart of it was Liam Scales and Johnny Kenny. Liam Scales particularly. Some of his balls forward that night were brilliant. For me, I don't know what you guys think. I would have Liam Scales as Celtic's player of the year so far, personally. I know he gets a bit of stick and his passing's not amazing all the time, but I think he's having a brilliant season.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I mean, I think he's been a top performer. It's not a vintage season so far, Celtic right enough, but he's been one of the top performers. He's been left for a wing back, wasn't he, for Ireland? In the 2 games, he was terrific. Obviously, that big assist for the moment of drama in the game at the weekend. Listen, he's a guy who never hides from Celtic. I mean, he's always put himself in the line. He's put his body in the line. He's okay. He's maybe not Paolo Maldini at times, passing the ball out of the back, but more often than not, he's decent at it. So I can see why he's in the team. I think people are I think most people realise. Yeah, he gets a wee bit of stick here and there online, but I think by and large most people know that this is a guy who's a good, honest pro, but also a good player. I mean, he's an international player now as well. He gives his lot. He fronts up. I mean, even with us guys in the media, after kind of some of the sore ones, he'll always front up and take the questions. Not even if he's not particularly in a great mood about it, but he's always been willing to front up. He done it at Midtjylland the other week as well after a particularly tough night, and he was one that faced up and. I think he's starting to get a bit more respect that he's due. Because he's a right good player for Celtic at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel Graeme, there's a wee bit of snobbery about Liam Scales. I know it sounds really juvenile, but if he'd been signed for 7 million and was from Croatia or something, I really think fans would have taken to him a lot quicker and they wouldn't have got half the stick.
That's the life. It's called Skalanovic. He'd be a superstar.
I'm telling you, honestly. I think a lot of Celtic fans.
It's us gingers get a hard time. We're the most oppressed. We get it all the time. Anti-ginger agenda against us.
No, exactly. And I feel like, you always hear about academy players that are like a great example and coming through. Well, he's a player that was signed pretty young, but he's a good example of players of like, they're never going to be superstars, but the value I have in players, I think Greg Taylor falls into that category as well. Yeah. Just these players that really solid, reliable players. Obviously, Greg Taylor we all know the Champions League and that level is a challenge for him, just physically, probably more than anything else. And Scales, I feel, has done a really good job of developing his game. He's full of confidence. And I know of all Brendan Rodgers' late day moans, the 2 left foot thing, or the 2 left feet, sorry, with him and Trusty are really, really good together, honestly. And I think they've just, I think they're maybe, it's not a go at Carter Vickers, but as a pairing from Atalanta to the recent games, they just work. It goes to plan. And I think you're right, he is a player of the year. He's been superb.
I think that's the perfect note, guys, to end this week's.
Let me just clarify that these skills. Ginger comment: strawberry blonde or Tyson sunset. I'm Tyson sunset. I'm Tyson sunset. Let's get that sorted right away. I'm not Ginger. I'm Tyson sunset. Right, okay.
I've got a bit of that in my beard as well. I'm going to start saying that, Tyson sunset. That's good. I like
Tyson sunset is my natural shade.
There you go. Some advice for everyone listening at home. That brings us to the end of this week's Record Celtic podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Mick, Graeme, it's always an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, mate.
All the best, guys. Hopefully tonight with Scotland goes to plan. I fear it's not going to be a relaxing evening.
I think whatever happens, it's not going to be relaxing. But
we'll see, yeah.
We'll see. Thanks so much for listening at home and hope you can join us next week.